the historical Jesus both in his historical context. He engages with no scholars who would disagree with him on his comments of Jesus. It is one-sided, highly politicized broadside against religions. Then we come to Michel Onfray, the French philosopher. In his book Atheist Manifesto, page 115 to 127, said Jesus' existence has not been historically established. He makes great sweeping claims but fails to cite scholars and evidence to back up what he says. He has even been noted to get his facts wrong. He said there are an incalculable number of contradictions and improbabilities in the body of the text of the Synoptics. He then notes crucifixion victims were not put to rest in tombs. Jews were not crucified at this time. Solid evidence contradicts the French philosopher. Josephus said the Jews are so careful about funeral rites, and even malefactors who have been sentenced to crucifixion are taken down and buried before sunset. Josephus' Jewish War, chapter 4, verse 317. So we have looked at 4 new atheists, and we find these facts about their understanding of Jesus. All 4 do not do anywhere near, so we looked at 4 new atheists. We find these facts about their understanding of Jesus. All 4 do not do anywhere near extensive study of the historical source material about the life of Jesus. All 4 ignore engaging with scholars who might disagree with them. All 4 have a polemical agenda against religion. They tend to read the life of Jesus in the light of their political struggle against religion in the present. They tend to attack the virgin birth and see that as the main evidence against Jesus being a real historical figure. The rest of Jesus' life is superficially treated only to make a political point against religion in the present. This can hardly be seen as fair, objective historical treatment of the life of Christ. In conclusion, the Bayes theorem. In a debate, James White asked Dominic Crossan about bias in historical method. Dominic Crossan replied, "We have presuppositions, but we also have data." This is in the resurrection debate, Crossan and Borg versus White and Renihan. This debate took place on board a ship in 2005 in the Gulf of Alaska, YouTube channel Dr. Oakley, 1689. Crossan, he implied that we can get to the historical data even with bias. I agree with Crossan, but he failed to highlight, as Dr. White wanted to do, that our presuppositions in historical inquiry are a problem. Most of us, even scholars, are not aware how we shape the historical material to suit our agenda. What bias do you bring to the table? How are they shaping you as you look at the material? What steps have you taken to make sure your bias doesn't get in the way? What presuppositions still remain on the table when all said and done? As we have looked at the history of historical Jesus studies and the new atheist, we all have to be more conscious of our bias, be more honest and upfront about it, or if not, we'll just go round in circles confirming what we want to believe rather than letting the evidence speak for itself. Scholars can even try to trick the public into thinking they are more objective than they are. An example is scholars who use the Bayes theorem, such as the atheist Richard Carrier, proving Jesus did not rise from the dead. This theorem tries to show how the conditional probability of each set of probable causes for an observed outcome can be logically deduced from knowledge of probability of each cause and the conditional probability of the outcome of each cause. This theorem tries to show how the conditional probability of each set of probable causes for an observed outcome can be logically deduced from knowledge of the probability of each cause and the conditional probability of the outcome of each cause. To be fair, it must also be noted, and I note this, that evangelical scholars have also used the Bayes theorem to prove their case for the resurrection. The Bayes theorem can be used by both sides to give the public the feel that what is being said is all scientific. Susan Hake, an atheist, has given a great lecture in warning us about using science as some authority to give our ideas more kudos than in reality. Science does not actually, sometimes, in historical inquiry, does not actually substantiate. Sorry. Susan Hake, an atheist, has given a great lecture in warning us about using science as some authority to give our ideas more kudos than in reality. Science does not actually substantiate or remains neutral. Susan Hake, 6 Signs of Scientism. Dr. Hake's talk at the Rotman Institute of Philosophy at the University of Western Ontario on January the 7th, 2011, engaged scientism, the view that natural science is the most authoritative way of looking at the world and is superior to other interpretations of life. We can see in the case of Dr. Richard Carrier that he already thinks Jesus is a myth, but he uses his Bayes theorem to make people think he is being objective in his historical work. The Bayes theorem and the modern historian proving history requires improving methods, Dr. Richard Carrier. What Dr. Richard Carrier fails to tell people is the theorem is not used by most historians and is subjective in many cases when used for the historical task. The great difficulty, in quotes, about applying the theory is that it is often not at all clear what value should be given to the prior probability, end of quote. David Bartholomew, statistician, page 117, The Resurrection of Jesus, M. Licona, IVP. Next quote. Thus the Bayes theorem is subjective, end of quote. David Bartholomew, page 117, Licona. Next quote. Virtually no historian has used it, end of quote. Dr. McClure, M-C-K-U-L-L-A-G-H, page 117, Licona, end of quote. Next quote. It is unclear how the Bayes theorem can be worked out in practice, end of quote. Dr. Tucker, page 117, Licona. So now we've looked at presuppositions and how we're all biased. Now we're going to look at, and I've tried to be fair, I have said that evangelical scholars can also be biased, but specifically given in-depth analysis of For Atheist and Richard Carrier's Bayes theorem. Next part of the lecture. Next part of the lecture. Methodology. In the methodology, we're going to look at comprehensiveness and depth, the historical grammatical method, historical criteria, and E.P. Sanders. Methodology, not A, comprehensiveness and depth.